Thank you all for the presentations. We will continue with a brief discussion. I saw some people typing very eagerly, but no questions arrived at the workshop. What were you typing? Making summaries or something? Anyway, just to create the context, with a show of hands, audience, who here believes that civil society or civil society organizations play a key role in the integration process? The other didn't hear the question, or okay. Well, enough said. To get this discussion going on the scale of 1 to 10, Ronnie, for example, how big topic is integration in Denmark?
Well, it's the one topic that seems to decide who gets to rule the political scene. It's used as a driving force in many elections. It's always the immigrations and refugee issue that seems to be dominating the media. So it's a very big issue in the media, but I also think it is a great challenge in our society. There is a resistance within Denmark. Certain groups in Denmark are resisting to integrate with people who are different from them. And if you come as an outsider to a new country and you feel this resistance, you're also going to be careful and sort of also withdraw because you feel unwelcome. It's not going to make yourself come forward. So we have sort of a negative situation where people are turning backs on each other instead of facing each other and finding common ground. So I think it's a great challenge right now in our country, and we need more initiatives that actually create places where we can find common ground.
More youth meetings.
Yes, because I see the situation here with the Russian. There's a very big, I'd say disturbing way of making all the time taking up the differences between the Estonians and the Russians. I think if we're focusing less on the differences and more on all the stuff we have in common, at a certain time, maybe we'd stop talking about Estonian and Russian, and we stop talking about Muslim and Christian or Danish and Turkish.
Okay. What about Finland, Piotr?
Well, if we talk about public discussion, I would say it's around 8 from your scale. If we talk about what is really going on and happening, how the things are said in public discussions are really working, I would say it's from 3 to 5. Not more. And the problem in Finland, from my point of view, is really the difference between public discussion, changing law, whatever, saying, making nice gestures, big nice gestures, and then the reality, which is not quite the same.
Okay. I forgot to say that if you should have any questions, please prepare them. You will soon. Oh, already? Well. Okay, why not? We have a conference assistant coming with a microphone.
Hello. First, I want to say thank you. You had all so fantastic speeches and very touching, and I really believe the things you are doing. And my question is, you do many things, and I feel that we also do many things, but I sometimes have the question myself. We are changing some groups, some people, some individuals, but how to change the masses? I feel that we go Narva, where is 50,000 people. We make great projects, but they are taking part only some of them. How to change the many people?
I can start.
3 maybe, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's the magic of youth work or education, is that in quality youth work, participation is key. You cannot really, let's make projects for people and then expect that to affect them so much. But in youth work, when the youth is really engaged in the civil society, meaning that they are carrying out the projects, they are taking the responsibility, just like superheroes yesterday, they are going home. And they will influence their parents. And they say, I'm in such a wonderful project, we are doing this together with Max from Baldiski. And then the biggest influencers of the parents are their children. So if the children come home and say, yes, this is nice, I have a new friend and his name is Max, and we are in this wonderful project together and we will continue interacting and being friends, that's the impact, that's how it will ripple. So I think youth work really and education is key. But with youth work you have more options, yeah.
Trina, I have a follow-up question regarding this youth meeting thing. I read your report. I think you have done a really good job with the youth. However, could there be something similar for adults as well? And what could be their motivation to participate?
I think Integration Foundation is doing a great job in this department. So, yeah, I mean anybody. It's construct. I think human library is a great example, and so on. So we are doing in Estonia, lots of things are going on. But yeah, youth is easy to tackle. They are still flexible. So the question how to change the attitudes of grown-ups, I still think, is through their children.
Piotr, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's actually, I will take up from that because in almost all working groups, forums, conferences, places I used to work, when we tried to do something good, there was sooner or later this magic word, attitude. And the problem with attitude is that if I'm going to change someone's attitude, my approach is that your attitude is wrong, I'm going to change it. And people people are not stupid. You should not think that your target group is an amount of stupid people whose attitudes you can change. So they have reasons for their attitudes, and they might be even proud of their attitudes. Mm-hmm. And so I think what I love especially about this human library idea is that you are not judging. Mm-hmm. You let anyone come and anyone listen to anyone. And you let people navigate themselves. You are not going to navigate to like patronize them. And I think that this is the most important thing, but it's also the most difficult thing, because being idealistic, being maybe, I don't know, coming to places, public places, making public speeches, we tend always to divide. There is a right attitude and there's a wrong attitude, and we are here with the right one and we're going to fight against the wrong one. And that's not very creative. That's not is not going
not very inclusive.
Yes, yeah, but you cannot say that stereotype is a very efficient attitude in a society. So we can all agree that finding ways to overcome stereotypes is best for everybody.
Yeah, well, I'd like to add that the most important thing to answer your question is looking at why the Estonian majority doesn't like the Russians. And if you're not going to talk about that, then keep wasting your time, because you're going to have to talk about it. You're going to have to talk about why the Russians are isolating themselves here and not integrating with the Estonians. And the answers to the two questions are not going to be answers that are going to make you happy, that are going to make the politician over there smile and something like that, because it's not happy answers. Looking in the mirror, for some of you, may be a big pleasure. I see for some of you. For others, like me, it can be a great challenge with the disappearing hair and other things and hair coming out places you don't want it. Yeah? This is about having the courage to look in the mirror and realize the mistakes we did. That we didn't reach out to these people. We let this grow and grow and grow and grow for generations of segregation, of invisible apartheid, of anger, of no reconciliation. There is a history here. There is even bloodshed. You must be able to talk about what happened. Put it out, clean it. There is no process for that. There's no process going on in your society for that. So you can work with the youth, and that's great. But we also all know that the parents are a very strong influence on young people. And I know parents who take their children away from social relations. My wife died 5 years ago, Many of the children, my children's friends, were taken away from my children by their parents because the parents were afraid of death and afraid of their children having to learn about death in this way. So they took their children away as friends of my children because of the taboo. So you can work with the children, that's great. But later on, when they go back in their homes and the pressure of the family and the norms, they will forget their friend with Estonian background, in my opinion. So we will need to do much more. We need to go in the little space where it hurts and talk about the things that hurt. If you don't, you won't solve the problem.
Okay. We might as well end the discussion here at this point. Piotr, you said in your presentation that language is not the most important thing when talking about integration. A bit provocative question, do you personally regard language courses pointless?
Well, it depends very much on what kind of language courses we talk and who are the people participating in. So if we have an individual approach, it's not a relevant question, because the person who feel him or herself needing kind of a language course, he will find or she will find being navigated and motivated. Being not motivated and navigated, he or she wouldn't even search for that. And then again, the quality of teaching there is another question. For myself personally, I would say I never went to any language course, Finnish language course, and I came to Finland not speaking a single word in Finnish. And now I studied in Finnish, I wrote my work in Finnish, I work as an interpreter, interpreting German, Russian and Finnish altogether. So I don't think that you can generalize and say that Finnish courses should be for everyone and they should be this way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Triin, do you have bilingual kids in this youth meeting groups, and how to use their advantage? A question from the audience.
How do they use?
How to use
their
advantage?
Yeah, great question. Yes, of course they are in every part of Estonia, because these projects take place in all over Estonia. Each part has its own youth meetings held, and there are bilingual kids everywhere. It turns out they might be in parts of Estonia we do not expect. So I have seen many transformations. For example, to the project writing training. We have these project writing trainings where we motivate the youth and we engage them. And then come like the small groups who are the initiative groups of their bigger group, and they find partners there and they develop their ideas there. So I often see that they have included a very, 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 very shy kid. But the shy kid has one extra advantage. He or she is bilingual. And very soon this kid realizes that he or she is a great resource in that context. And I have seen afterwards going to visit the project and looking, who's that? I've seen this kid somewhere, but and like huge 180 degrees changes in this, like finding their self-confidence in this resource of knowing two languages and being of use, and yeah, totally changed kids.
Okay.
In my country, we spend a lot of resources forcing immigrants and refugees into language schools. The results are horrible. Completely agree with Peter. You need the motivation, you need the attitude. People who are motivated and have the right attitude will seek out the language that they need. My friend is from New York. He spent 25 years in Copenhagen. He speaks very poor Danish. He went to language school because they forced him. He was never unemployed. He was never homeless, never out of a job. He has a family, he has his daughter, and he speaks horrible Danish med en forfærdelig amerikansk accent. You know, Americans that speak Danish, it sounds horrible. I'm sorry, everybody watching from the US, but it's not great. And spending all that money, twisting people's arm to make them do something, it's not working. It's not the way to integrate. I agree with Peter.
Actually, I had a very interesting discussion the other evening when we had a dinner with speakers and moderators, and an Estonian lady came to the problem of Russian speakers from Estonia, complaining all their lives that Estonian is too difficult to learn. And then all of a sudden they moved to Finland and they learn Finnish in like 2 years or maybe even less. So how is that possible? Finnish is at least as difficult as Estonian, if not more.
More.
So, well, personally, I think there is objectively no such thing as difficult or not difficult language, because every single child is learning his or her mother tongue at a certain age. Chinese, Russian, Finnish. So when we start to compare languages, then we can say, okay, compared to Russian, Finnish is very difficult. But whatsoever. And I think this is a lack of motivation and orientation and all together combined. And I think that it has something similar to, for example, what happens to Somalian people of second generation in Finland. They go through the education system, as I told you, from kindergarten till university, and then they move, let's say, to London. Why? Because then they can decide for themselves becoming an immigrant. So it's their decision. They navigated themselves to become an immigrant. Right. But in Finland, they don't feel immigrant. But Finnish society is pushing them towards this corner. You are the immigrant of second generation. Okay, that's a bigger word, second generation. But you are still different. And that is, I think, a little bit of the case with Estonian Russian speakers. I know those moving to Finland and learning very quickly Finnish. They just simply feel that their future, their work, whatever, is possible there.
All right. Do we have some questions from the audience? Oh, we have. Let's take it from the back, and then you, and then you.
Okay. Hello. I will stand up so that you see
Thank
me.
You.
So you remember I come from Lithuania, and I work for the Ministry of Education and Science, and I think that it's cool to be a researcher. It's even cooler to be an authority or a politician, but it takes courage to practice what you preach. Mm-hmm. And I think that this session is great for a reason, that this is the most personal session. So my question is related to your own stories. I think that all of you took the courage to go out into the field and probably shout or wrestle. So I wonder, if you go back to your personal histories, what was that punch or feeling or incident that encouraged you to take up these initiatives and roles and missions, I would say?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So.
Oh, okay.
Ladies first.
Studying political science and working at Tallinn University, so I had close contact with research results, especially focus group interviews. And I saw the divide between understanding. I saw that the Estonians, me being Estonian, the attitudes of Estonians were so conditional. The Russians are accepted in our society if condition A, condition B, speaking great language, having the same view on history, being patriotic, then we maybe will accept that the barrier of acceptance was really high, and it really hurt me personally. So I thought, if I have any ways of changing that, I would like to find out what are these ways.
Ronnie?
Yeah, well, it's a very, very long story. But when I was 5, I fell asleep in the Sinai desert. And while I was sleeping out in the desert, God spoke to me in a dream. God spoke to me in Hebrew. And he said, you have to make something of your life. And I asked what? And he said, you have to find out. Here I am, still trying to find out.
It sounds a bit like my mother, except the Hebrew part. Piotr?
Well, I might I might say something very idealistic and activistic, but not being idealist and activist, I would say I have a very egoistic approach to that. I think that the best solution for every one of us is try to make your life happy, doing something you really can identify yourself with and can realize yourself in. And if you don't do that, then stop doing it.
Yeah, okay, thank you. We have another question from the audience. You have the opportunity to choose the microphone.
Alexander Usman, Ida-Virumaa Integration Center. I agree with position of Danish expert, and my mind that all experts today said about different aspects connected with tolerance. Only three indicated word tolerance in own presentation. But at the same time, my mind that practically all problems connected with tolerance in Estonian society. And my question is, where is a border of tolerance? How to use tolerance on the practical level? Because we have a big difference and big gap in political position, in language position, in religion position between a position of Estonians and non-Estonians. But where are the borders?
Who would like to start? Piotr?
I think the border is that we have to stop talking about tolerance and start to talk about respecting each other.
Yeah.
Because if I tolerate someone or something, I kind of give a present from myself to another person or to another thing. So I tolerate you. I don't like it. It's like it's not a good approach, as I told you also about this attitude thing. So I can tolerate your attitude, but it doesn't mean I respect you.
Any other thoughts?
Well, if we find common ground, it's because we begin to understand each other. When we understand each other, we respect each other, we accept each other. So I think allowing people to explain who they are so they can be understood, giving minorities also, the people who are pushed, a place to be heard so they can be understood. When we understand something, we're less afraid. We're more willing to be open. We also may be afraid because we understand we have to fear. But we have to understand to know what it is. Once we know what it is, it's easier to find acceptance. But
in youth work, there is this metaphor that different cultures are different icebergs. We can see the part that's above the sea level, but what's under, all the history and value sets and why everybody behaves the way they do. We do not see them, and if two cultures collide, they collide through the part that's under the sea, that's not visible. But to me, this metaphor is actually for everyone, for each person separately. We are each carriers of different cultures. We have our value sets, we have our life experience, and when we collide, or we usually collide on the level that is not visible. Why somebody, I don't know, sits on the table or says in an informal you to people they respect and so on, which can be interpreted really as insults by other people through the part of our value sets that's under the sea level. So to me, specifically, I think we are all carriers of cultures and understanding and trying to understand and trying I think it's a general human competence that everyone should have, and categories are irrelevant.
Okay, thank you. I'm afraid our time is up, so Piret, you will have to ask your question during the coffee break. Thank you all. Let's keep in mind three things: orientation, motivation, and inclusion. That's what I picked up from here. Thank you. Hannes would like to. Thank you.